Hello, everybody. It is episode 29 of Boss Talks. I'm your host, Evan Happel with Community Boss. We are a solution that helps you manage the physical aspects of your community, whether it's parking, amenities, or mapping. We got you covered. But on this episode of Boss Talks, we have Adam, I can't speak, Adam Pittenger with Moved. He's one of the founders and has a history in the tech space, PropTech specifically. This is actually his second company that he has been a part of in specifically multifamily or apartments. And so he's got a lot of experience in that, in growing a business. And it's going to be a very interesting conversation about being a founder, raising money when you're doing a business like this, because that's a big part of it, obviously. And also just what's the landscape of PropTech right now, in the sense of not only is he founding a company, he also invests in others. So he has pretty good footprint, or I guess understanding of kind of what's going on out in the space. So I'm happy to bring him to the show. Adam, thanks for being here.
Hey, Evan. Thanks for having me,
All
my
right.
friend. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So Adam, we haven't personally met in person, but I've been able to go to your guys' booth when we're at different events like NAA, and I've met Emily, one of your great employees at Moved, who's over marketing, just like myself, and we've gotten to chat too. But yeah, you guys are doing some cool things that are very complementary to what we're doing at Community Boss, and you as a person have done quite a few things, and even the reason for building this particular community was actually a personal, like, I don't know if it was angst or like what, but that's typically what it is. It's
Anger.
A pain point. Anger. There it is.
Anger and angst. Why not?
But that's typically what it is, right? Like we have an experience and we're like, this is a problem for me. It's got to be a problem for other people. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
So I would love to
I
just
think that's
learn a little bit more about you and kind of your, I guess, journey in tech, and then how you got specifically around the apartment industry.
Yeah. Kind of like you said, it's kind of scratching my own itch. I think a lot of companies start with the founder experiencing the pain themselves, and I have lived in multifamily property after multifamily property at the time. So my career started, I worked at a startup that was building social recruiting software, not at all multifamily real estate or prop tech, but just through that experience, really got to understand what it is to build software, what it is to serve enterprise customers. And it was at that time I was going through my fourth move in 4 years, all in Manhattan. I've now done 9 moves in 10 years. So like I said, going from multifamily property to multifamily property. And as you suggested, I had this pain point. It was like moving is so stressful. You do any research online and you see moving is a top 1 to 3 most stressful life event. So I knew it wasn't just a me problem. It was an experience that people around me were having. I know, millions of people in the country have every year. And I just felt, my background in building software, we had just sold the company to Oracle. I was leaving Oracle, having this next moving experience, and said, I think it's time to try to solve this with software, with hospitality, which I really didn't feel like, the industry had seen before. So we started building this, really focused on the direct to consumer. So there's a lot of ups and downs and sort of what I'm glossing over, but really focused on the end user, solving the problem of the consumer. And as we're building that, we have this key insight around moving isn't just stressful for you and me, the end user, it's stressful for these properties. So our team is working with property managers, leasing teams who are charged with moving these folks in and out and handling all those logistics. And it's a pain for them as well. And so sort of the genesis for what Moved is today was that experience, both personally and then running the business, working to move, people in and out of properties, and realizing the leasing team, the property management team has a bunch of sort of sale tasks that need to be automated. And so that's what we do today is we automate that process for those properties and give the residents a great experience on the way in.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've moved a few times too, and there's always hiccups. There's always things that, you know, along the way you don't understand, or you forget to do this or that, um and for some people they don't move that often, so it's like they don't even know what they're forgetting.
Yeah, I
So
think it's this like moving is this beautiful emotional dichotomy of like there's a lot that's really exciting about moving where it's like, oh, I got a new place, maybe a new neighborhood, moving in with a significant other, or we just had a child, whatever it is. It's overshadowed by all the stressors that you're talking about because one,
oh
you
yeah.
don't do it very often, you're not an expert in moving. It's expensive, it costs money to move, and then you
Yeah.
have, notably in the multifamily use case, you have kind of two sets of tasks. You have your personal tasks of like, all right, I got to update my address and I got to go to the DMV and I got to buy this new couch and I got to get this thing. And then you have the property that's saying, hey, we need proof of renter's insurance. It's got to meet these requirements. And you have to reserve
Mm.
an elevator and we need insurance for your moving company. And there's these two different lists, both of which you're not super familiar with. And I just think, a combination of technology and hospitality, the bar is pretty low, but I think it can make it a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. And we see a similar thing. We don't do nearly what you're doing, but we definitely see an opportunity to make the move-in experience a little better. And our vehicle is a map, and being able to reserve, like you said, reserve an elevator. Well, we can help with that, and kind of even come to team up with Moved in the sense of like, come together, you tackle things, we tackle things, make the whole journey a lot better. So it's, get to know where you live, get acclimated to the community, but also just updating stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big part
And
of it for
that's,
sure.
and I love what you guys do as well, because I think, part of you know, the difficulty of building what we're building and sort of, handling this use case within the resident journey in multifamily is it's really asset specific, right? And, the moving requirements, what the property needs, how the property is situated, the real estate itself is so nuanced and specific. So being able to orient the residents through
Mm.
maps, through information, and doing that at the asset level versus just sort of cookie cutter saying, hey, here's what this looks like at the portfolio. I think it takes that level of detail and intent and thoughtfulness to make that a great experience for the residents who are coming in.
And being very like, this is for this person. Like,
Yes.
these are all the things they need to do. This isn't a general list. This is like a
Yep.
built list, or in our case, a built map that is for them, and it shows them their stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, everybody that moves in has to do certain things, or they live in a different part of the property, or whatever it is. So yeah,
Yep.
there's all the dynamics for sure, but
Yeah.
definitely can be an improved upon experience. And at the end of the day, I think we mutually want to improve upon that experience for the resident experience, because that is a big part of living at a community, is their experience. And the better it can be, the longevity might be better for the resident. They don't want to move if they enjoy where they're living, and
Totally.
all the things.
And I don't think it's mutually exclusive to, I actually think it goes hand in hand with operational efficiency, which you see as a focus across our industry today, is just making, obviously optimizing NOI, but like there's a few different levers you can have in that, certainly on the resident side, but also on your team side, making them more efficient. And I think going to what you're saying is if you give tools to the resident to make their experience better, odds are they're not going to go to the staff for questions.
Right.
Redundant questions that team answers over and over
Exactly.
again. So if you equip the residents with the tools and the information and you make it transparent, make it easy to use and consume, you're freeing up your team, your staff,
Yeah,
to
a lot
do
of
their
time.
best and highest work. Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, especially if you're a big community with lots of moving parts. The residence is
Yeah.
just one aspect of that, but if you have 50% turnover on average, and you've got 700 units, and that equals X number of people and this many parking spaces, and all the different stuff that goes with that, I mean, it's a lot. And so if you can take a lot of that and automate it, quote unquote, I mean, that's a big piece that you can just be like, it's handled for the most part.
For the most part, you
For the
can
most part.
drive a lot of that question volume down. I think at a very minimum, that's an easy one to tick off.
Yeah, as long as they're educated on how to use the resource they're about to be given.
Yeah, well,
I think that's the part that sometimes is a little bit missing.
yes,
Sometimes.
yes, that can be missing. I think
Yeah.
there's certain audiences and certain groups where at specific properties you'll see that where there's maybe a less tech savvy group, and the concept of logging into another app or having another dashboard to go to is overwhelming. And so I think it's on operators and builders like us to think thoughtfully about
Mhm.
segmenting those folks and having sort of safety nets and backstops, whether it's pure email communication and being able to have a template in an email to quickly click a button versus having to log in, doing that through
Right.
SMS, building tools for the team who says, you know what, I'm talking to this person and I just want to do it for them, allowing them to do it, but it all updates in the same system. The data all syncs nicely together. So
Yeah.
you're right in that there are different sort of segments of folks where they're using it or not. But I think it's on us to go try to figure out how we best handle all those use cases.
Yeah. And that's why all these companies like ours have people to help train people, train the
Yes.
staff, and
Yeah.
be prepared for that very situation. So, but yeah. So you guys have been around for how many years now?
So we started the direct to consumer business about 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And then, really had that insight about, hey, wow, we got to build a broader operating platform for multifamily. Call it 2019. And we launched our first properties in late 2020. So really been in market selling our product since early 2021, call it 2 years now.
Oh, okay. And the other product you had was also specific to apartments, right? Was it called Abode?
Yes, so that's really where I started, which was kind of a New York specific product. I was living in Manhattan at the time, and was super frustrated with the real estate agent experience there. Their fee was passed off to the renter side, and so I started to build really a product that connected renters directly with leasing agents, allowed them to create that conversation, schedule appointments, etc. Uh, and for a multitude of reasons, realized this wasn't the right product or the right business model, notably to scale nationally. And sort of realize, I felt like, and still feel like today, moving and starting there as a really, a place where not a lot of people were sort of attacking that space. Where I think if you go back to when I started that, there was a ton of momentum and people starting to really build, and capital being put behind prospect experience and
Hmm.
listings platforms, marketing platforms. And so I think in retrospect, it was a good decision to go in the moving direction.
Yeah, but it was a good learning experience.
All
It
failure
always
is.
is, right?
All failure is. Exactly.
For sure. No, I mean, if you can't learn from something, I mean, you stuck with multifamily, so you learned enough about that particular industry to be like, okay, well, there's something else here, um, to
Yeah. Well,
tackle.
I didn't know anything about multifamily, Evan. I was just naive and ready to conquer the world, and very much got the Mike Tyson quote, got punched in the face, got knocked down, but kept getting back up. Like you said, it's a learning experience, and all failure is sort of a point along a broader journey. And so if you look at it like that, and you think about it, hey, what did I learn here, and how can I change that or make it better, or what does this learning open up for me? For me, that was the moving opportunity, and fast forward 5-6 years, and here we are.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I'd love to learn a little bit about the journey of a startup. What's it like to start something? I mean, you have to cast a vision. People have to believe in what you're about to do. And then you can't do it without funding. And the interesting thing that we need to understand is with technology companies, they can't just go to a bank and say, hey, I'm starting a business, because you don't have any assets. They're not like, okay, well, if this fails, how do I get my money back? There's nothing for you to sell. It's all tech. You might have the ability to get like a, I don't know, like a patent or something, maybe. And maybe you can sell that. I don't even know how that part worked. But technology is a very interesting thing. And so tell us a little bit about the journey of raising money, what that's like, how, and what did you learn in that? Because I mean, most people don't do that.
Yeah, it's a unique journey, and like you said, yeah, it's despite assets and things like that, it's not like you're starting a bakery, or you're starting a hair
Right.
salon where it's like, this is a known business model. All right, let's look. What's
With
the
known
population look like in that
demand.
store? Exactly, exactly. So here you're just saying, I think this thing might work. It's probably going to look a lot different in 12 months, but give me your money. Uh,
Right.
it's very, very different. It's hard, man. It's really hard. So I had kind of backtracking again. So I worked at this company. I was falling in love with product management. We sell to Oracle. I stay on at Oracle for a year, jump to another startup. It's a good, well-paying job. I'm living in New York, and that's when I'm going through this moving experience, and start flirting with the concept of a boat, and then moved. And I quit my job, just like, left a well-paying job for $0 in salary. I remember I was all excited about it. The first day I go to this coffee shop, it's just me. I'm a solo founder. And I was like, what did I just do? Where do I go from here?
Yeah.
And so, fast forward, really what I did was I started working with my network, right? So through those jobs, I had a designer and an engineer that are still part of our team today, all these years later, Jason and Danny, just to create some early designs for what we thought this would be, to be able to start to build it and ultimately pitch it. Like you said, you have to go raise funds, and you have to be able to go build a company. Software is expensive to build. Engineers are expensive, but they're worth it, right? That's the product that you're selling. And so having no knowledge of what fundraising is, or what VCs look for and things like that, I start to go down this path, and it's just rejection after rejection after rejection. I think for our seed round, I probably took 150 different meetings,
Oh,
150
wow.
different investors. Sorry, not even just like meeting count, but like 150 different investors. And I didn't know who I was targeting. I wasn't talking to the right people. Like I was like you said, a learning experience. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just jumped in with 2 feet. Uh, so the process is really hard. We were lucky. Like we got into an accelerator program. It's called Angel Pad. Really small cohorts. They took 12 companies per batch. And that really gave me sort of like, it was like a master's degree in venture capital. I started to, learn and understand how venture funds were constructed, and, what their incentive structure was, and what they were looking for, and who I should be targeting. And using that, allowed me to be more effective with my time, with my meetings, while we also started to learn more about our product and build it up. And even then, it was really hard. And our first seed round was raised by Lowe's Ventures, the Fortune 50 home improvement company.
Interesting.
Believe it or not. Yeah. So we're building this moving concierge service, and I'm along the path of my 150 meetings, 150 relationships at that point. And I get in touch with a guy named Chris. He was leading Lowe's Ventures at the time. And we go out for lunch. He says, I want to take you out to lunch in New York. And he said, before you say anything, let me pitch you my idea. And he basically just does my whole pitch for me. And I was like, yes, this is it, eureka. What do I do now? Where do I go? He said, I think I'd be crazy to not invest in this company. But at the time, they were only, writing small checks. I think they were like $100,000 checks, and we were looking to raise about a $1 million round. And so I had to go find a lead investor. And after a few weeks of trying to find a lead investor, I just came back to Chris and said, I think you should be the lead investor. And he said, sure. So they ended up writing a bigger check. And then we were able to just kind of scrape together a seed round, some more stories on getting that done. But we were able to do that and then use that capital to really build up the first version of the product, work out, different channels for acquiring customers, build that up. And then as we started to do that, had that real key insight around, okay, multifamily is the direction to go. And with that, was able to get really strategic capital on our cap table. So going to folks who are high net worth individuals within multifamily, have multifamily portfolios themselves. And then at that time, you start to have the emergence of dedicated PropTech funds. And I was lucky enough to get in front of a few of those really early on and said, hey, look, I think there's this really huge opportunity. And didn't have much to show at that time. But like you said earlier, it's a matter of building conviction. You have to start with yourself. You can't go pitch somebody on something that you don't believe in your heart, and sort of using that passion and conviction to say, hey, join this journey with me. And lucky enough, we were able to have folks that jumped on, use that capital to hire more of a team, build a product, and the cycle continues today.
Yeah. Well, and before we go any further, there actually is a question from somebody. It's not showing up who it was, unfortunately, but their question is whether or not you've ever thought of expanding and adding other multifamily products in leasing payments or maintenance since you're integrated with property management software systems.
It's a very unique name, LinkedIn user.
Yes.
I don't know what nationality that is, but yeah, LinkedIn user. That is, it's a great question. So directly answer, yes, we've thought about it, but I don't think that's the right direction for us to go. And sort of going back to what I was talking about with the origin story of, I started with a boat and thinking about renting apartments, and sort of realized, hey, this is a very crowded space. A lot of people are in that. A lot of people are doing it and doing it well, frankly. I really like to, zag, instead of zig, I'll go and zag and sort of go in another direction where I think it's less crowded. It should be an equally big pond, but, less fish to compete with in there. So to the question there, I think there are a lot of really great companies and tools out there that do those things that the question was talking about. For us, I think, certainly there's a lot of opportunity to expand what we do today. And I think we have a really unique opportunity as really, another way to put it is sort of the check-in and check-out aisle of multifamily to expand in a unique way where we are powering more resident touch points, right? So we are today catching you as you're moving in, as you're going from prospect to being a new resident. And then we also power move outs and offboarding. And so we're sort of getting the bookend of that experience. And I think, not to tip too much of our hand on where we're going, I think there are unique experiences and touch points along the resident journey and data that can be collected there that doesn't really infringe on some of those things that other products do, but certainly serves to maintain a relationship with the resident and provide insight to the property that helps them operate their business. So definitely not, maintenance requests and things like that, but I think certainly there is an opportunity for us to expand on the platform that we already have built.
Yeah. Yeah. And if only there was just a simple way to just bring these things together, other companies, their tech, put it in your app, have it just continue. I mean, it can happen, but it's not as simple.
Yeah.
It's not as simple
Yeah.
as that.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
but I think as the years keep going, and there's probably going to be more and more consolidation, more and more of these companies that are doing very niche things. We're doing a niche thing, you're doing kind of a niche thing, where
Yep.
they kind of come together, I'm assuming, like where they've been done really well because that's what their focus was. And now if you bring them together, then you have good pieces that, play well together.
I think you're right. I mean, I think that's where our industry was headed anyway. But
Yeah.
given sort of current state of the economy and what we're seeing, in the venture landscape and private equity, like it's just sort of the perfect storm in a way now, where over the last, call it, 5 to 7 years, you've seen this influx of venture capital come into PropTech. And like year over year, quarter over quarter, just more and more and more capital. And that's great for our industry. But I think we've reached a breaking point. I think we've reached a point where we have so many point solutions. We have so many companies that have been born out of this influx of capital because it had to be deployed. And PropTech was certainly a mandate for that. Hey, you need to have, as an investor, you need to have skin in that game. That's a growing sector. But you have all these point solutions. And I think generally, multifamily owners and operators are tired of a million different pitches day after day after day, and companies that are now starting to do the same things because you're having feature overlap, right? So you start to get, hey, we're going to start and do this one thing really well. But now we need to expand. Our investors are asking us to make more money per unit. We need to go win this client over, and they're asking for this thing, even though this other company does it. And so I think you have this, perfect storm of customers, multifamily owner operators looking for platforms and less point solutions, and more sort of like systems of record. And then the pressure of the economy, companies having a harder time trying to raise capital, and the confluence of that, I think, is going to lead to mass consolidation over the next 12 to 24 months within PropTech, which I think is good and healthy and just sort of cyclical. But as a part of that, you'll start to see more platforms emerge as they integrate those products into the existing ones for the acquiring company.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in order for there to be adoption all the way down to the resident level, there's got to be a better, like, these got to work well together. And there's got to be, we have to kind of like figure out a way to make them play well so that they don't have to have 5 apps. They don't have to have, and even the manager, they need to be able to understand how it works so they can explain it and if they have 5 things to explain, then it's like telephone, right? It's like, so, there is challenges for sure in the whole thing. I mean,
that's why integration is so important. I know, we're all sort of beholden to, as new vendors in the space, beholden to the, large accounting firms, accounting platforms that we all need to integrate with. And, if you start a PropTech company today, the immediate advice would be go integrate with Yardi, go integrate with RealPage.
Right.
I'm not fighting that narrative, and like, you should. That's table stakes.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
It is, because you're not going to sell anything without doing that. But I think where we should go as an industry, and notably if we're going to be able to maintain point solutions, to what you're saying, Evan, we need to integrate with each other, right? Because I think what vendors today are running up against, on top of everything I said, is you have the fatigue of implementation. We got to teach our teams this. We got to teach our residents this. Okay, there's feature overlap here and there. And if if our industry and this sort of cohort of startups in PropTech today stack hands and say, okay, let's partner and create a stack that's ultimately the best for our shared client and their residents, I think that's a win for the industry. And frankly, on top of consolidation, that'll become as much of table stakes as it is to integrate with Yardi and RealPage today.
Right. And when you go and talk to somebody, what at whatever stage, whether they're a regional site manager, whatever it is, to be able to say that this really works well with this, and this, to meet kind of a spectrum of needs. Obviously that always sounds better.
Yeah, they love it, particularly if they like the other solution. Now you got to be careful there because they might be
sure.
Oh, that company sucks.
Right. Yeah. Pick the right one.
You're right. Yeah. Have a little survey before you go into that meeting.
Yeah. Nobody likes this. Well, the funny thing is sometimes people don't like it, but they're mandated to use it, right? So that's always an interesting thing. I won't name names, but there's definitely some companies out there that I know are in that boat when it comes to
it is, but I don't know. Things like that just shock me because I feel like not naming names, it's not even anyone specifically that jumps to mind. Like if you're that company, you need to have a pulse on that, right? Like, sure, it's great to know, ownership is pushing this down their throats and it's got to be used by the teams and the residents. That's not a good business model. It's not a good incentive structure where it's just required, because that's when you start to get products that suck and users that are pissed off because you're not listening to that end user and saying, wait, why don't we like using it? Because clearly there's strong business fundamentals where an ownership group is saying, hey, this needs to be used, this needs to be required by residents or site team or both. That's a beautiful thing. And if you can go nail the product, you're going to be that much better, that much more defensible, and you'll just start to understand your customer and areas of expansion and opportunity. So that frustrates me when I hear that. It's like, oh yeah, we have to use this thing, but I hate it. I'm like, God, that's just screaming opportunity in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. And it also means, to a degree, it's also like somebody in the stages likes it, right? Because of what it produces for them. But there's a disconnect as to what it's like for the people that are producing that end report or whatever. And it's like not really caring about what it's like for those other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is weird.
I think it is weird, right? Like, I don't know how you guys think about this. And I'm curious to get a peek behind the curtain for how you guys think about it. But like, I think, again, as we graduate and sort of mature as an industry, we have more technology. We need to account for all stakeholders: ownership, site team or centralized office, resident, right? Like every piece of that puzzle, unless you're not touching one of them, like I think most companies are at this point, you need to be looking at your experience on each one. Like, what is their motivation? What is their incentive? What is their interaction with your product or your brand or your team? And what does that experience look like? And I think looking at those individually is frankly something we all need to be thinking about.
Yeah, I think so too. So we actually have some more questions, which is great. Love
Bring
questions.
I love it.
Yeah. So the next one, this one has a face and a name, so that's good. Bennett, I know he's maybe somebody you've interacted with. He actually stopped by one of our booths here recently at PropTech, but he's just wondering. He's just curious if there's anything you would have done differently in those beginning stages of the journey. I'm sure there's many things.
That's a great question, Bennett. I think we're probably going to need a part 2 of the podcast to really get through all these. But
How about nail one?
Yeah.
Nail one.
Yeah, I can nail one for sure. Things I would have done differently. I mean, to go back to the very beginning stage, I would say, um, ideally have a co-founder. Being a solo co-founder, going back to that coffee shop story, it can be really lonely. And even, fast forward, those 150 fundraising is a notably pre-seed and seed, and the ecosystem's a lot more mature now. So there's more money out there, there's more established process. But like going through that alone was such a grind, and it's very lonely and difficult emotionally and psychologically, because you have and you need to listen to feedback, but you do have, like I was talking about earlier, this conviction on this is the right way to go. This is going to be a big product, a big company, etc. I just need to get people on board. And if you keep hitting a brick wall and saying no, you need to listen to that feedback. But there's a level of persistence you need to have. And I think going back to sort of what I learned, it's not easy to just have a co-founder, but having somebody by your side, and I had a great like personal support network and even professional support network, but having somebody who's in it with you, taking those meetings, hearing that feedback, living that day to day, hour to hour, that support, I think, is, if you're starting your very first company, I think it's really important. And I think hindsight's 2020. Would have loved to have somebody by my side after each one of those meetings.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Like, you're gonna have a pep talk with yourself. You're gonna, and also just everybody has a different perspective, and everybody's got different things they've experienced from other jobs and things like that. So there's
100%.
always going to be something to learn from that. And if nothing else, having a coach, maybe, I don't know, if it's not a co-founder, it's some kind of coach or mentor that's very involved.
Yeah. And I think more practically because just finding a co-founder is not easy. And like, I could speak longer about the topic of co-founders, because that is like more than a marriage. Like, that's really hard to unwind, and really difficult. So you don't want to just like pick somebody off the street and say, hey, I need somebody to take a meeting with me and like feel
like
my
being
pain.
In a band.
There you go.
Yeah.
So if you can't do that, more practically, I think, would be going back to what we were just talking about, listen to your customers. Like, my background was in product. I was so pumped to like start a company, build this product. And like I said, I was working with a designer and engineer who are with the company today. And I was just like, all right, let's build this screen. Let's build this feature. And I wasn't talking to anyone. I was just going on my own experience, which like, okay, but it's one data point. AngelPad was really good for us in teaching us, stop writing code, get out there and talk to people. And there's this really great framework through which to have customer discovery conversations to understand who they are, how they're hacking the problem today, and how you can better solve for it in the future. And those conversations will do more to move your idea and your business forward in those early days, more than anything else you can do. So I would go back and tell myself, get out of that coffee shop and go talk to some people who are moving. Yeah.
There's a lot of people moving, but also, leasing agents and everything, like, kind of goes with both sides of it, really understanding the pain points, I guess, when it comes to the process. So talking to people is always good. Even in all products, our product, everybody's product, like, we can have a good idea and it may actually hit on solving a problem, but it's like, maybe it's not exactly right. Like, there's just one thing that if you did it differently, mass adoption.
Always the silver bullet we're looking for.
At least we hope, right? Well, that's great, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, kind of explain all that. There was one more question, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. This is actually Livingston. He's with Happy Co. Is the person that is the LinkedIn user. I looked him up. I don't know why he's not showing up.
Nice.
I think it's because he's not a direct connection of mine. So
Got it.
anywho, he's really intrigued by what might be the next stage and touch points in the company. Potential features.
Is it related to packages and lockers? It's not related to packages and lockers. We do have some fun stuff we do with packages and lockers today with some of our clients around key pickup and saving them time and making it easier for residents who are picking up keys and getting access to their unit. But the future is not around packages and lockers. Again, I think it's another one where folks have really good solutions in market. More to come on what we're doing, what we're up to, I'd say later this year. So I know that's a very abstract answer, but stay tuned.
Yeah. You can't share everything. It's got to be.
I can't.
Got to be
just tease it out.
The reveal. Tease it out. Something coming, guys.
People, yeah.
More
we want to
come,
see the
more
next
to
card.
come.
More to come.
That's right. Well, yeah. Thanks for sharing about your journey, about your company, and the learnings along the way. So, if anybody hasn't founded anything, which is the majority of us, it's always good to hear like what's the experience and kind of humanize companies and understand like what does a supplier go through to get it off the ground when it comes to technology or really anything. And there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and personal investment and mistakes and learning and all the things. And then hopefully at the end of the day, you produce something people want.
That's right.
That's
right.
The end goal for sure. But some companies do fail, and it's sad. Like nobody wants to go into it with that end result, and it does happen.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we have a dream and we hope, and we go for it. But you guys are seemingly doing well, so it's great to see, and hope the best for you guys as you go into 2023 for sure.
Likewise, Evan. I appreciate that, and likewise to you guys. I love what you're doing, and hope 2023 is up and to the right.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
All right. So yes. Well, just like Adam jumped on, this has been episode 29 of Boss Talks. If you want to be a guest, by all means, reach out to me here on LinkedIn, Facebook, email, however you can get a hold of me. Reach out. I'd love to talk to you, learn why you're the boss and what makes you tick, why you're passionate about what you do, whether you're a leader, whether you're a leasing agent, whether you're a founder, whether you're a marketing professional. I love to hear all the stories. So by all means, reach out and we'll talk. Till next week, this has been Boss Talks. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Evan.